people imagine that the God of the Old Testament in the Bible was a God of wrath and of judgment and of anger and a war-mongering God. And then they imagine that when they get to the New Testament, that suddenly he changes, and with Jesus he becomes a God who is softer, more gentle, loving, compassionate and forgiving. But the Bible says that God is the same yesterday and today and forever. It doesn't change. So what is God really like? Well, in the book of Jonah, which is an Old Testament book, you see in just a few short chapters this whole picture of what God is really like. It begins with God saying to Jonah, I want you to go to this city called Nineveh. It's a really wicked city, so you imagine that maybe everything about the city is corrupt. There is all kinds of violence on the streets. You get the picture of what it's like. And God says, I want you to go to this city and say, judgment is coming. So you see that, okay, God is a God who is holy, and he has to punish sin, and he will judge sin. But then as you go through the book, you begin to understand why God actually wants Jonah to go and preach that message. The reason is because he actually wants those people to come back to him and to be forgiven and to be saved. He doesn't want to have to punish them. Jonah, on the other hand, he can't stand these people. They were part of this nation called Assyria. Assyria at the time were Israel's greatest threat. So he actually wanted God to judge them. So he runs away. God is so determined that these people are saved and forgiven that he goes after Jonah. He sends this great storm. Jonah is thrown overboard and he gets swallowed by this big fish. And when you see that imagery of Jonah being swallowed by a big fish, you're meant to think of Jesus. Jesus himself, even in the New Testament, said, I'm going to give you a sign. One sign, that's the sign of Jonah. As Jonah was in the belly of a big fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man, that's Jesus himself, will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. And so your gaze is taken to the cross, to the death, and to the resurrection on the 3rd day of Jesus. And on the cross, you see that Jesus is being punished by God the Father in righteousness for the sin that he had on him. So you see that God is a God of justice, and God is a God who has to punish sin. But then you realize that the sin that Jesus had on him wasn't his own sin. He had no sin. The sin that Jesus had on him was actually my sin, the sin of this whole world. And so you realize then that God is also this God of incredible compassion and love and mercy and grace. You see, while God is a holy God and he has to punish sin, he doesn't want to have to punish my sin. So he sent his own Son to take the punishment that I deserve so that I could be forgiven. That's what God is like. God is the same yesterday, today, forever. An amazing God.